Hello, career thought leaders. It's good to see you today. And we are going to be talking about how the white collar recession, I'm hearing a lot about that right now. What is behind that? How can we help clients navigate through it? What are some of the tools that we have? And how this has led to more long-term unemployment? And what are some of the proven things that we know help people who are in long-term unemployment? So those are our topics for today. I know we've got a lot of clients that are struggling. They're transitioning industries. They're feeling the crunch of the market, especially here in the US, and we want to be able to help them. So that's why we're here. Say hello, let me know that you're joining me, and we're going to dive into some of this content. So started hearing about the white collar recession, and it's interesting because there's some articles like 2022 saying that this is over, and then of course in 2023, 2024, there's been a large increase in the white collar recession. But what does that mean? I will share maybe this with you. All right. So here's how they define this, at least in one way, is that the layoffs in professional and business services. So you're thinking technology, right? This is our middle managers, those types of folks, made up 25% of all layoffs. So 10 other types of jobs, but business and professional services made up 25% of those layoffs. So this is why we're talking about the white collar recession, is because we've had a loss of jobs in this area of these professional services types of jobs that people have, are having a hard time getting back into. And we'll talk a little bit more about the long-term unemployment here in a second. So when we think about, and I found this visual, so I'll just share it with you. So if you're not familiar or kind of wondering like what fits into these categories, this is just one visual. I think that these job categories are shifting a little bit, but about blue collar versus white collar jobs. Blue collar jobs have changed quite a bit. They're not, they're not your dad's or your grandpa's blue collar jobs anymore. We're just they're shifting. But in general, white collar jobs are more the, marketer, mid-level, teacher, and jobs, and they don't necessarily pay better, which is what this graphic was trying to get at, which is interesting for our clients to see. Whereas the blue collar jobs tend to be more hands-on, maybe in the trades, but that's shifting. Now they use a lot of technology, and so they're looking different, but we still have these two different kind of types of jobs that people talk about. What I want to talk about, well, it's helpful, I think, to think about why these jobs are going away. And there are two main reasons that the research shows. I'd love to hear what you think. There are two main reasons that these jobs are in decline, at least at this exact moment. The one we hear the most about is technology, that people are putting in AI and that's causing job loss. And there's an article that I read recently. I'll have to find it again, but it talked about how we're in this like perfect storm because companies are eliminating jobs because of AI, but the new technologies that are just getting hold aren't creating jobs yet. So Ann Nakaska talks about all the just amazing things that technology is going to create related to biomedical advances, aerospace advances, all these different technologies. We're not just talking AI, but all these new technologies that are going to lead to new jobs, new companies. But a lot of them are still in the infancy phase. They're in the Series A, investment phase where the company's really small or whatever it is, still experimental. And so the job losses going to technology right now have not been replaced by the new technologies yet. And this article said that there's like this 3-year period where we're going to see this difference. And it's interesting if you're a data person because the World Economic Forum report from 2023 to 2027 said that we were going to lose jobs this 2025 to 2030 says we're going to gain a whole bunch of jobs, but we're in the middle of that right now, right? We're still in the job loss phase, not in the job creation phase quite yet. And it's just a lot of factors coming together, of course, with the government letting go, laying off, firing, whatever word you want to use, unfortunately has added to this already perfect storm place in the workforce. However, that doesn't mean there's not opportunity, right? There's always opportunity, and that's our job as career professionals, is to help people find that opportunity. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is where do those opportunities happen. I just want to key in on, yes, technology is a piece of it. We're going to talk about how do we use that knowledge, that technology is part of why people are laying people off. The other piece of it that people don't talk about as much because it's just not as sexy, and we can't blame someone for it, is that or blame technology for it, is that companies shifted about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, from investing in companies based on potential to investing in companies based on profitability. So you look at old valuations and old investments, things like Uber, that just huge money investment, but never has made money, right? So there was a lot of investment going into companies based on potential, or, I kind of call it blue sky. Like, look at all these awesome things that could come of this. And the investment started shifting about, like I said, 18 months, 2 years ago, to, hey, we're not giving money to your company anymore unless you can show profitability. And that has related to a lot of these layoffs that I think in some ways are being covered up as due to AI, when they're really not that much. They're also attributed to this shift of, we want to see profitability in your company. You can't be losing all this money every month and still get investments. And so those two things, again, coming together at the same time, but we can use that information to help our job seekers position themselves as the obvious choice to hire for those positions that are open. And that's what we're going to talk about doing. So before we get into the options and the opportunities, the other thing I want to talk about is this long-term unemployment. So the data on this shows that so they look at it at the end of the year each year, and what percent of the unemployed people have been unemployed for about a time. So in 2024, November 2024, 23% of unemployed individuals were long-term unemployed, 27 weeks or more. So half a year-ish, right? 6 months. When you've been unemployed for 6 months or more, that's when you're kind of fitting this long-term unemployed category. And it's also when unemployment bias starts to kick in. In 2023, it was 20%. In 2022, it was 19%. So we've seen a 3% increase this year, December 2024, of people who were long-term unemployed over the year before that. So this is what we're helping people with, is not just that they're unemployed, but that we're seeing, and I've heard people talking about it, right? We're seeing more people who've been unemployed for a long time. Now, there are some structural things, there's some economic things, there's some political things, there's all these causes to that problem. The only thing we can help a client do something about are things they can control. Man, do I wish that some of my smart people I know had more control than we do, but we don't, right? All we can control is ourselves, really, and our interactions and our perception. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Although I realize that there are much bigger things at play, that's all I can impact. And that's what I hope I can help you impact for these individuals so that they can get employed faster. So we've got more people unemployed in these sectors, more people being laid off in these sectors, and people who are already long-term unemployed, that it's kind of building higher and deeper on, right? So how do we help these people transition? How do we help them find the silver linings that they can tap into to find positions that are a good fit for them? And that's what we're going to talk about that's what we're going to talk about now. So Karen, I've covered a little bit of data. It was 25% of all layoffs in 2024 were professional services. So 25% were attributed to just the kind of white collar sector out of all the layoffs in 2024. That was through September 2024. But then the unemployment numbers I was sharing was 23% in 2024 as compared to 20% in 2022. So we saw this jump of 3% in terms of the unemployed individuals who are considered long-term unemployed 6 months or more. And that 6 months or more number is important because we have to recognize with our clients that once someone hits that 6-month unemployment mark, they are going to experience unemployment bias. And it no longer works to be clever, cagey, think that a gap shouldn't matter. Maybe it shouldn't, but it does, especially when you get to that point of being 6 months or longer. You are going to experience unemployment bias, and we can help people mitigate that as much as possible if we're realistic about it. We have to be realistic about it, that having that gap is going to hurt you if we don't find some way to address it, to show what you've been doing to connect to the industry. Now, thankfully, some of these ideas kind of go hand to hand in terms of how you address a gap and how you address shifting markets and being employable and finding those places where you can tap in to the market's needs. So we'll come into that here in just a second. One last piece of information that can be helpful to us as we dive in here is just some of the industries that are doing well in these challenges. So let me share this. So this was based on some research that I did. I follow LinkedIn sends out things of the industries and who's hiring, companies and who's hiring. I think these are good to look at. They aren't always the end all be all, of course. They're a jumping off point. We've done a few things on labor market and job search, but I just want to bring this up again. So when we think about industries that are losing jobs, professional services as an industry, because of course those are jobs, but it's also an industry in and of itself, finance, technology, consulting, things that can be replaced by AI. Now we're seeing legal, and of course, government would fall into this, although for a different reason, right? However, on the other side, industries gaining jobs, healthcare, construction, government, yes, still government, the places in the federal government that aren't touched by the current policies, and local, state, those places, I've seen a lot of them stepping up and saying, hey, what a great opportunity for us to capture some of this talent that is unfortunately being let go. So there are a lot of state and local governments that are hiring and making it more visible and doing things to fill that gap. So yes, government is still on there, because just like anything else, just because there's a whole bunch of layoffs over here doesn't mean there's not a whole bunch of hiring over here. Even inside the federal government with Department of Energy, one of our colleagues was talking about this morning, Department of Defense. So some of our colleagues or our clients might still be interested in those areas of the even federal government that are growing. And then of course the other areas of government. Professional, scientific, and technical services, the ones especially that deal with AI and AI-related things, consulting and accounting firms, again, the firms that are working on what's the right word? Optimization, automation, all of those things. Those people are getting a lot of jobs right now. Software, analytics, AI related, cybersecurity. So those are just some of the areas that are hiring. However, remember, this doesn't mean that those are the places our clients need to look. It means that we're looking at trends, we're looking at what does this mean, and we're looking at how could my skills plug into that. Not necessarily that I've got to go reskill, although we'll talk about the power of reskilling, but it's if I'm in marketing and I'm being let go from Amazon or Meta or whatever, here's a bunch of other industries that might be hiring another marketing person. So a cybersecurity company that their industry is growing doesn't mean I have to go become a cybersecurity specialist to tap into the growth of that industry. I can still leverage my current skills sometimes, but it might mean I need to learn about the industry, need to learn some different skills to be marketable, all of those things. So that's what we're talking about when we're looking at the bright spots in the market, is how can your client plug into those, not necessarily having to do a whole new degree or totally change to make that of value to them. So then I also did some work, and I have a LinkedIn post on this, and I'll put it in here. But on the new white collar jobs, we are looking at solar installers and wind turbine things, and just the new things that are happening in that white collar space that are completely different than what we might think of when we think about white collar or even manual labor. Again, doesn't mean my client needs to go back and become a in installation technician. Maybe they're the salesperson, maybe the marketing, what HR, all of those companies that they need those roles too, because they're growing. And even though AI might replace parts of some of those jobs, they're still going to need more people to do those jobs because they're growing. And that's what we're looking for. So when we think about making these transitions or kind of the reasons that we can manage to help people move past long-term unemployment, one of the biggest things is upskilling. And I am going to say upskilling. Usually I say reskilling, but today I'm going to say upskilling because we're really talking about some specific skills when it comes to this. AI, technology, automation. Remember, the shift from blue sky, I'll invest in you because you've got this cool idea, to profitability means that every single candidate, and this is where middle managers are getting the squeeze, if you can't show how you add value, bottom line dollar value to the organization, you're going to have a hard time keeping your job or getting a job. And this can be harder for some of our roles. I understand that, right? HR, those types of things can sometimes be less connected to revenue generation or cost cutting. But those are the stories we need to help our clients tell right now. How are you helping automate, improve, streamline, digital transformation, all of those types of stories? Those are the ones our clients need to be telling right now. And one of our colleagues was just telling a story in our membership group this morning about working with a little older job seeker who was able to talk about how they use AI to improve their work, to improve the process, to make things faster, better, stronger, and got the job because they are bringing in that differentiated skill. Marketing report came out from CoSchedule. CoSchedule is a marketing social media planning tool, talking about the like 90% of companies are using AI in their marketing. So if you are in marketing and you are not talking about how you use AI to plan, listen, strategize, and yes, create content, this is going to be really hard to get a job. And that's the new skills that our clients can go and get. A lot of times they can go and get them for free. There's also been some posts about free AI trainings. If no one has those at the top of their little fingers, I'll come back and put some in. But there's so many places that people can go get free AI training, but also a lot of it is just thinking about how could I use this in my job and experimenting and then coming up with some case studies, even if they weren't necessarily inside of the company that you used to work for. How can you put some things together? And of course, a lot of the paid programs may provide a project or an outline of something that you could do to create that case study. A lot of times that's the value that they add. But our goal is to help people get those skills, those in-demand skills, and tell the stories that matter. And right now, the stories that matter are a lot around technology, automation, streamlining, profitability, and around profitability in general. How can you help a company make money, save money, all of those things? Because those are why people are getting laid off. And so if we're going to not be the person that gets laid off if we're still employed, or if we're going to be the person that beats out the other candidates, that's a bad phrase, but if we're going to be the person that stands out, we've got to be able to have those stories at the top of our resume, that this is the differentiator. Now, remember, we were talking about long-term unemployment and gaps. One of the best ways to fill a gap is with education. Fill it with this relevant problem or solution type of education that we're talking about right now, even better, so that people see what you're doing. Help people consult, do things for nonprofits, always aligned with the skills they want to use as much as possible. Going to volunteer at the food bank to bag food is admirable, and I love that. It's probably not going to help you get your next job unless you meet someone there that can help you with that introduction. If as much as you can, do things aligned with your skill set so that you can fill that gap on your resume. And I know it's popular to say that it doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter. There's a whole journal probably full of data on unemployment bias and that it does matter. We've got to help our clients recognize that and fill the gap, take that education. The other thing that those things do typically is make us feel better about ourselves. And so there is data related to unemployment bias that we bring that with us when we've been unemployed for a while. We are downtrodden. We're frustrated. We're bringing that negative energy in. Now, of course, it's not our fault and it's warranted, and it gets in our way when we're bringing that into our interactions. And so we have to help our clients find ways to not do that. It's a very maybe rude thing, but I was at a job fair in 2010 when things were bad, right? I was just looking at the long-term unemployment number for 2010, and I don't remember, but it was like 30%. It was huge. And I was at a job fair, and an employer that was at a booth came up to me and he said, why I'm in a room full of Eeyores. That's what he said. I'm in a room full of Eeyores. And my heart just sunk because I knew the pain the people, the job seekers were feeling. And I also could see that as a hiring manager, hiring someone to come into my company, it's hard to bring that energy into the company. And it's hard for them to see that, of course, that energy would shift when the person gets hired, but that you just carry it into the room with you. And so that's one of the things we can try to help people for themselves. Control is probably the wrong word, but right, that is in our sphere of ourself. That how can we make sure we're managing our energy, we're managing our stress, we're finding outlets to boost our confidence, to boost our energy. Volunteering can do that. Developing new skills can do that. Engaging with the people in those new classes you take can do that. But those are some of the things that we see with long-term unemployment research that we can help mitigate. Then, of course, networking. We talk about networking a lot. I saw a post the other day. It's like, stop talking about networking. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't know how to stop talking about it, because especially when you've been unemployed for a long time or you're making a transition, your resume is not looking good. It just, it can't when you're in a transition or you've got a gap. It's going to be people who believe in you, that refer you and tell your story with you to someone else, that is probably going to make the difference. And that's networking. But it is also very specialized or strategic networking, in that we want to be specific about how we ask for help, and we want to help people understand where we're headed and how they can best help us, which is where a lot of people fall short when it comes to networking. Then we get around to resumes and storytelling and messaging. And we talked about this a little bit last week in terms of industry change resumes, but it's about telling the stories that matter in a language that connects. And this is what most people who are making a transition have a hard time doing. And even with the industry trends we were talking about in terms of technology, profitability, those stories, we need to make sure those are being told in a language that matters or connects, because that's what people are concerned about right now. So if we're working on those industry transition resumes, that's really our goal, is to help the person understand the industry they're going into, understand those challenges, and then tell the stories that matter. Right? That's where we're going to spend our time, is really helping people understand that. How do you connect the dots? How do you tell those stories that matter once we've got all of those pieces together? So we are doing a session on Friday on branding and resumes, storytelling. How do you build a resume that's not a bunch of fluff, but actually tells the stories that matter, but in a differentiated language? So if you're interested in that, drop me a note. I'll drop the link in here afterwards. That's and some of you wrote to me and asked for the discount code, so I will get that to you. Love to have you join us, especially newer resume writers or people who aren't as versed in industry transition. We'll give you a discount code. Love to have you join us so that we're not writing fluffy resumes, because fluffy resumes aren't going to help anyone right now. We need hard-hitting, revenue generating, money saving resumes at this point in time, especially. So join me and we'll have those conversations. Yes, Jen, the numbers through 2030 are really uplifting, right? We're seeing a huge prediction of job growth. it's just not maybe happening yet, but we can look for those bright spots and help people find them. And that's our goal. So we're looking at industry bright spots. We're looking at mental health and managing our energy with folks. We're looking at that upskilling, getting the skills that matter right now. We're looking at your marketing materials and really thinking, are we connecting the dots? We're helping people understand how to network in a way that feels good, that can build your energy and make the connections that will help you get the introductions and referrals that you need. Those two things don't need to be mutually exclusive. And then the last thing I'll say, and we kind of talked about this in terms of volunteering, but finding ways to keep using your skills. Volunteer for a nonprofit to do their marketing, to do their AI automation, right? I'm guessing they don't have someone to do that. So if you're just learning, why not? Go find a few nonprofits in your community, see if you can help them integrate agentic AI, right? Then you've got a case study, you've got a story to tell, and you help somebody. It's like a win, 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 right? You just have to think about what skills do you really want to learn, what skills do you really want to apply, and then who's somebody that maybe could use that, and even doing it for free or for a low cost, or maybe some kind of barter that you could do with people. I don't know. Just thinking about it a little bit more creatively so that you can have that side project, have that volunteer, but do it in a way where you can then tell that story to demonstrate the skills that you want to demonstrate for the next role as well. So those were the tips that I had for the white collar job loss as well as unemployment, long-term unemployed. I'd love to hear your thoughts on other strategies you're using with clients, other ways you're helping people get through these challenges. And I would just encourage us to be real and encouraging with folks, that what really gets in their way and the biases that they're facing. We were talking about this earlier. There's so many new biases that we're facing. Our federal employee friends, being categorized in certain unhealthy lights, people in different categories facing more bias. We've got to be somewhat real about that so that we can figure out how to address it and not play into that as well. So we know gaps cause bias, especially when you get to 6 months or longer. I don't want people pretending that that doesn't exist. Let's come up with some strategies to mitigate it. I hope that's helpful. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. If you have topics we should cover or ideas, let me know. And if you want to join us on Friday for that session on storytelling and differentiation in resumes, drop me a chat and I'll send you the discount link. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.